Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Hello, everybody, and it's a mystery what's going on here. Oh, that's right, it's a podcast. It's old TV, it's modern lens, it's nostalgia guys. I am this week's host, Amy, and I am joined by my group of mystery solvers. We've got the smart one, Audie.
Really? Jinkies.
We've got the pretty one, Steven.
Zoinks!
And we've got the one who wants all of the snacks, Travis.
Ruh-roh.
So, in case you couldn't figure it out, we're talking about Scooby-Doo. Now, I want to cover a couple of things up front here. First of all, when I talk about Scooby-Doo, I'm just going to refer to like all of old Scooby-Doo, right? Because up until I went to go find this episode for us to do, I could not have told you that there were so many disparate versions of let's all get in the van and go solve a mystery. And that's fine. And the second thing is so I was the one who put forth the special guest star. I put it on the doc. I was the one that championed it in our survey. All right, so I'm just gonna say this is really more of a crossover episode. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. But when I put forth the topic, I did imagine it very much like the I Love Lucy episode that we did last week, where it's like, famous person shows up, the audience claps because they know who it is, and the whole thing. But it's fine.
Well,
I
but
love
will
what you
say
did.
that, yeah, because this entire series was special guest
Yes,
stars for
yes.
Scooby-Doo, so it does fit.
I feel this episode in particular is very crossovery, and according to the old Wikipedia, or actually it's the Scoobypedia. I kid you not, it has a bright green background. It is appalling. It's also kind of a backdoor pilot because shortly after this was when they launched the Addams Family animated show. So I'm gonna skip like the part where we talk about if we know what Scooby-Doo is, because I'm gonna go ahead and make an assumption. Like if for some reason this was someone's first time seeing Scooby-Doo, you go ahead and let me know. But I'm just gonna make a little assumption there.
I'm unfamiliar with this major cultural thing from when I was a kid.
I mean, I'm looking at the list of like Scooby-Doo iterations, and it's basically never not been on television in one way or another.
Or a movie.
Yeah, like it's just been there. And so one of the interesting things about Scooby-Doo, and so this is what I'm going to ask instead. When they were originally developing this show, it was because so many of these Saturday morning cartoons, like Space Ghost, the Herculoids, and Birdman were very violent. And so we all know that parent groups love to screw up kids' TV. So they said there was too much violence, and so they worked out this whole show. So the original concept was that they were going to be a band that traveled around and solved mysteries in between gigs. And that eventually got thrown out the window. So now what I'm going to ask you is, what did they do?
I really like the band story. Like I could take that
band
as
story
is.
is
Like,
good.
yeah, I'll put that in my headcanon of what they're doing, because they're really just driving around, randomly showing up places, and it's cool to think maybe they're a band. I mean, they're in a van,
Mhm.
that they have. That's enough. That's probably enough.
I mean,
Makes sense.
Look, if they were a band, it was like they were like the Monkees or the Partridge Family. That was the type of music they were doing.
Yes.
That was and really what Hanna-Barbera did was they ditched that idea for Scooby-Doo and then just recycled it later for like 8 other cartoons.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I was gonna say they were gonna open for Josie and the Pussycats or something.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right. So
Come on, get happy.
the episode,
Sorry,
Yeah.
just all I was thinking of. I couldn't help myself.
So the episode that we watched is actually from the new Scooby-Doo movies, which were hour-long episodes. And the episode that we watched is Wednesday is Missing, which is the crossover with the Addams Family. Now I will admit that I am not the biggest fan of the old Addams Family. And that is only because Raul Julia and what's her face? Wow, Angelica Houston are
Mm-hmm.
they're my Addamses,
Yes.
Yeah.
and that's just
I watched that
That's not to
movie
say.
recently, and it holds
Yeah.
up
holds up
so
so
well.
well,
Oh yeah.
so
well.
well.
Yes.
So nothing against the original Addams Family show. They're just not the same. John Aston, I can't swoon. I'm sorry. Like,
It's a different energy, man, you know?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
being in Adams, I'm kind of supposed to hate it because every kid in second grade followed me around snapping. But, you know, I embrace it. I'm good with it.
There
They
you
spell
go.
their name different, you know? It's fine.
Yeah.
You
One
know?
of the
Nice.
things I like about it is that, it comes from this time of like the Munsters, right? It's supposed to be this like, oh, this
Mhm.
couple, look at how strange they are. And their like primary feature, aside from the fact that they look weird, is that the husband and wife really love each other. Which is just, I mean,
That's so
Lucy and
crazy.
Desi from last week, obviously. But I mean, Desi does get fed up with her fairly frequently, so.
Well, the comedy for that, it's always the husband and wife, like one of them's doing shenanigans and the other's getting
Yeah.
upset. And with the Addams
Mhm.
family, that's just this family that just loves each other to death. Like maybe literally. They like love each other so much. And all the shenanigans come from the people who don't understand them. And that's
Yeah.
what's so cool about that whole vibe to me. And
Yeah.
why it's endearing, I guess.
Or shenanigans happen and you realize that the Addams want it to happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
plan all along.
So this episode opens with the gang in the mystery machine driving through the fog and swampy kind of area. So they're lost a little bit. And then all of a sudden there's these two lights appear in the distance. And and Velma's like, they're giant eyes. All right, come on now. Hang on. Now I will admit
Of all the
Go-
characters to say that, though, Velma
Right.
is the one that
That's what I'm
shouldn't have.
saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're Shaggy, you go, all right, yeah.
Yeah, she needs a prescription
obviously."
checked. I mean, obvious. That's
She's
the
got
problem.
the glare.
Right.
The
Yeah,
worst.
they've been touring the country for years. I mean, when's the last time she got to an optometrist?
That's fair. So the mystery machine runs off the road. The people that are driving the other car stop, and it's this like old couple. They're like, we're getting out of here. We were the housekeepers at that weird old house, and we have got to go. And they're like, geez, that house sure is weird. Now this shows the epitome of we're going to both show and tell everything all of the time. And it has a laugh track, which I love it. I'm sorry. I love an animation with a laugh track. It's so dumb and terrible. Between that and like, I mean, I loved the Flintstones growing up, and that has like a massive laugh track.
I mean, it's one of those things that you would hate if it was live action. You would,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
watching it now, you would hate the laugh track, but there's some sort of endearing quality about a laugh track in an animated thing because without a shadow of a doubt,
it's not real. There's no way,
But
Yeah.
it works. Like I wrote that down. I had forgotten that every Scooby-Doo episode has a laugh track, but I'm great with it. Like I don't care. It makes the show more fun.
absolutely.
So Scary Man shows up, right? Which obviously everybody that's watching, well, I mean, I guess maybe not kids, but everybody recognizes immediately. They're like, man, this guy sure does look familiar. And this was I liked the way that this all went down. Because it was not how I would have expected it to be. But basically they're following Lurch, that we find out, up to the spooky house. And the spooky house sure does look familiar. And it's like once they get in the house and they're like, oh, it's the Addams Family. I've seen them on TV, which was I couldn't figure out how the universe works. Like that was
Right?
right, like
Yeah, I was
because
broken.
it's a family that they've seen on TV, but
Mhm.
they are like it's reality TV, which was not
Yeah.
a thing in 1970 whatever. Um
Well,
and
I guess for these movies, the conceit is just that
yeah,
Scooby Doo and
whatever it
everybody
is
is in our world.
in our world, yeah.
You know?
But
Right.
the interesting thing is having this be where they are seeing the Addams Family, not the actors that play the Addams Family on TV, but the actual
True.
Addams Family. And then later episodes, like they meet Jonathan Winters, and it's Jonathan Winters,
Yeah.
you know, the actor. So it's like this was just one of those conceits. They did the same thing with the Three Stooges
Right.
Mhm.
because they had the Three
Batman and
Stooges in an
Robin.
episode. Yeah.
So so Morticia and Gomez are supposed to be going on a second honeymoon to the what is it, the Okefenokee
The
swamp.
Okefenokee.
Yeah, which I
Okefenokee
love.
swamp.
As someone who was, I was in Georgia when I was in elementary school, and like the Okefenokee Swamp was this mystery of a place. Okefenokee Joe,
really
Audie
was.
knows, Audie remembers
Uh-huh.
Okefenokee Joe, and like he's
Yep.
this hermit that lives in the Okefenokee Swamp to teach kids about the environment and alligators.
Mm-hmm.
Smells terrible.
Yep.
Like this is a place that Gomez and Morticia would go. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want to go, but obviously their housekeepers have just quit. But good news, like the Scooby gang is here, so they can be the new housekeepers. So my question is, if Lurch and Fester and Grandma are staying home, why do they need more housekeepers? Like Grandma, fine.
Yeah.
Fester, okay. But Lurch has got it together. Lurch
Yeah.
runs that house.
Or
I
why
mean,
did they
Thing
need
is
them in
there
the first
helping.
place?
Cousin It is
Yeah.
there. Like, there's a lot of people in the house. I don't know why they need them there to watch the house, but that's fine.
Yeah, I wrote
So-
that down too. I was
Yeah.
confused as to why there were like
what are we
42
doing?
people in the house after
Yeah.
the Scoobies moved in.
So
Oh,
it's
hey,
dinner
I
time.
know. Because the plot demands it.
There it is.
Demands it viciously. So how else are we going to keep them in this house?
Mm-hmm.
So, dinner time. Weird things happen, which is unsurprising because we are in the Addams Family home. And when we come back, Wednesday has disappeared. And there is a note telling the Addams Family that they need to get out. The entirety of this episode, weird things happen and notes appear telling the Addams Family that they need to get out. And I'm saying that these people have very little concept about the Addams Family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because weird, creepy bird flying around their house, not a problem for the Addams Family. Honestly, child disappearing for a few days. The beginning, they pull Pugsley out of the sandbox. Which that was great because they pull him out and Morticia's like, see, I told you it was him. And Gomez is like, good job recognizing him. What? I mean,
It's
Oh,
only
that-
been 3 days.
And
yeah.
just that joke of him trying to dig to China, and they're like, his parents were like, you can't do that. And then a Chinese kid shows up.
Yeah, and he's like,
Oh.
oh, sorry, I can't play. My parents said I can't play with you. All right.
By the way, real quick bit of trivia there. You know who voiced Pugsley in this episode?
No.
Jodie
do know.
Foster.
Yes,
Are you
I saw
serious?
that.
Whoa. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the kids are not the kids.
Yeah.
Right.
They're the only
Uh,
ones.
Yeah,
All the
Yeah.
adult actors were the voices.
we're the
Okay.
voices.
Yeah, Wednesday struck me as very adorable for Wednesday,
Mhm.
Wednesday, which, by the way,
Yeah.
people call her different things. I heard Wednesday quite a few times throughout this episode, and I'm like, wait a minute, is that
There's-
you,
Yeah.
Uncle?
And there's a lot of day of the week jokes.
Mhm.
Yes,
A lot of
there
day of the
are.
weeks. The
A lot of
don't you want to see Wednesday again? And Shaggy's like, yeah, and Thursday and Friday, I'm leaving.
I wrote that down. That made me
It's
chuckle.
so good.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's like an awful lot of just like these every shenanigan that happens in this episode is stuff that I could like if you just mentioned it, I'd be like, well, that's clearly Scooby-Doo, right? Like the hallway with all of the doors, and you're like, yep,
Mhm.
that's Scooby-Doo, no problem.
Yes.
They're like closet, clearly labeled, very nice. And inside there are two skeletons, one of which is playing the other like a xylophone. Um, and and Fred's like, I've heard of skeletons in the closet, but this is ridiculous. All right, calm down.
Ba-doom-tsh.
Yeah, that's
um,
some Scooby-Doo writing there. There were a few puns that did that. The only one
Mhm.
that I felt like really pushed it because they had, what was it? Velma said, the feeling of being somewhere you've been before, that's deja vu. And Fred's like, more like deja boo. You know, that joke,
I groaned at that one.
that
there's
I groaned at that too. But the third one of those that they did from Velma with cousin It and the interior decorator, that was the one where I'm like, ooh man, that was a long walk for that joke. That
there's
just took
one
me
that
Uh-huh.
back.
goes missing because it's Shaggy is running at the time, and he says this house should be hex rated,
Right.
and I, I was like,
Mhm.
let me just make a note of that. I'm gonna use that later.
I forgot how everything in the Scooby-Doo universe, every room is just like a straight rectangle, like a really
Yes,
long hall.
really long,
Because I'm
Mhm.
looking at them
repeating.
panning like in Gomez's room at one point, and it's just like I mean, it's just straight across. There's no corners in there. It's
No,
just
no, you don't need corners.
walking
Yep.
through Fester's lab is like at 8 miles of
Mhm.
laboratory. Just like this is great. I had forgotten how fast everybody walked, how quickly backgrounds move. This is such a good journey for me.
So good.
Hmm.
So
And
we do get
apparently every room in the house is lit by candles, and
yep,
Yes.
that's the
which
plot device to
fireworks strangely there because at one point the candles go out, Shaggy goes to relight it. The match is lit, everything is still dark until the candle is actually lit.
right.
Yeah.
I still get freaked out about how like Fred and Daphne's eyes are not they're just it's just dots on flesh color, and that's
Yeah.
I forgot about that,
It's a little
Mhm.
and
weird.
it's disconcerting. Um so we do get to see a lot of rooms in it now. So first of all, we've assumed that Wednesday has not left the house. I don't know how we made this assumption. I don't know why one would think this, especially if it's basically, the vulture has claimed responsibility for taking her. So, but no,
Right.
clearly in the house. Um, so we do get to see a bunch of the rooms. There's the weird paintings on the wall that I was like, I would hang any or all of those in my home. That's fine. We get Gomez's room because of course they can't share a room.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So there's like a flail and a mace on the floor,
So good.
which I was like, okay, that's fine. And his bed of nails, um, which there's the holy man joke,
Mhm.
Hmm.
which is a lot, a lot.
That
It
was
is.
great. That was
Um,
great.
and then and Shaggy and Scooby pass out, which is the best thing they could do at that. And just like, great, thank you, you're out of the way.
The number of times they pass out / take a nap in this episode
Yeah, they're
is
not
impressive.
okay. Yeah. Um,
They're not okay.
they're not okay. So um Scooby stops Shaggy from jumping onto the bed of nails. And so he gets a Scooby snack, which let me tell you, the Scoobypedia keeps track of Scooby snacks and the number of times they say gangway in an
Nice.
episode. So that's fun. It's one in this particular episode.
The Scooby
So
snack count is
the
one.
Scooby snack, the gangway is one. The Scooby
Okay.
snack count is also one, and he's not bribed with it, which is the
Yeah.
Yeah.
usual thing, right? Is the like here he gets it as a
Mhm.
reward, except he doesn't get it as a reward because the moose
Mm-hmm.
who has stuck his head through the hole in the wall. They're like, no, of course they don't like to hurt animals, which is
Yeah.
great.
Everything's pretty
Like
gothic in their house except for that moose head looks like Bullwinkle. Like, I mean, it is
yeah,
the goofiest
Yeah.
moose head that you've ever
yeah,
seen. Like when you're playing a game or something like a point and click adventure and there are things that look clickable and things that look
yes.
background. Like that's a
Yes.
Yep,
clickable moose, like right out
yep,
of the gate.
yep.
I'm like, I'm gonna
Right.
click
Oh
that.
Mhm.
yeah.
Clicking
Yeah.
that moose.
Um, clickable moose is very good. So
That'd
we
be a
also
great
get
show title.
Uncle Fester's laboratory, which results in Fred being a complete idiot. Like Fred has the biggest blonde moment ever down in this basement room, right? Because he's
Mhm.
standing there like, oh, holding what is very clearly a firework,
Yes.
very clearly, and it's lit, and he's like, oh yeah, no, this is Uncle Fester's lab. Yeah, you know what Uncle Fester makes in his lab? Fireworks.
Of course.
Hmm.
Oh, that's a Roman candle. Oh, and the sparks are falling on all the boxes. And then he's like, we should get out of here. Like, no, you don't get
Just
to
run.
make that call. You've lost the right to make that call at all, Fred.
Mhm.
And then we get a fireworks show, which was pretty intense. Which causes Shaggy to say, hey, is it the 4th of July already?
Yeah, which I laughed. I was like, look, it
Nice.
is the 4th of July. I've got fireworks going
Yeah.
on
I got them.
outside.
Yeah, they're going on.
Yeah.
So my
I just-
We can.
neighbors are definitely
Gonna say,
illegally shooting off fireworks
Boom,
right now.
boom,
if you're
boom.
wondering when we're recording this podcast, it is on
You
the 4th of
probably hear
July.
it, yeah. Yeah.
Why aren't we watching the fireworks? Because we're all old and we've seen them before.
We've seen them. They're very
Yep.
loud.
It's just traffic. Now all I think
There's
about is
There's
traffic.
a lot of mosquitoes and Lyme disease is on the rise, and
Yeah.
I can't. There's West Nile. I can't.
Yeah, I just no
Um,
thanks.
Phil in the chat says Fred is an idiot. He's only part of the gang because he has the van.
I mean,
Truth.
I mean,
true.
we all
Yeah.
had the friend who was the friend because they had the car.
He's
I get
definitely
that.
the
The only
lead
one that's got
singer
a
of the
license.
band.
He is the lead singer. He's very pretty, and that's about it.
Yeah, he's the
Um,
face, you know?
Yeah. So, they find Wednesday's voodoo doll. Which that was another one at the beginning when she's playing with her voodoo doll and she accidentally stabs her own finger, which magically speaking, not a great move.
Mm-mm.
No.
And Gomez is like, oh, it's a voodoo boo-boo.
I like that.
Yeah.
So they find her voodoo doll and they're going to use this to track her down, using our good old Scooby-Doo. I did look it up. Great Danes are actually really good tracking dogs, which I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know if this is true.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
They're not, because they are in that hound kind of group. They're
Yeah.
very, and because they're so big, they're good rescue
Yeah, you can put a
dogs. So
saddle
yeah,
on him
they're-
and just ride him through the woods.
just ride them. Yeah, just go.
It's easy.
Every Great Dane I've ever known was the smallest dog they ever knew. Like they were
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm just small. I'll just curl up right next to you. Don't even worry about. I'm just so small. I'll just
Yeah.
fit right.
Yeah.
No,
It's
you're
so tiny.
130 pounds. Get off of me.
No, you're not small. You can reach the top of the refrigerator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without getting on your hind legs.
Yeah.
So the first thing that Scooby finds is soup in the kitchen. And they're like, oh, it's food. And he eats all of it. So Grandma Ma shows up with her like iguana on a leash. And they're like, oh, we're so sorry. Scooby ate all the soup. He's like, that's not soup. That's the lizard's
Oh,
bathwater.
God.
Which I'm gonna go ahead and say that I've seen what dogs eat, and that would not bother
No.
Scooby in one bit.
Nah.
For
He'd
me,
be
that
like,
was the
"Ah."
Scooby. We've seen what Scooby and Shaggy eat.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have bothered him at all, honestly.
Well,
Mhm.
Shaggy, we all know is has some chemically enhanced hunger, and so
That's true.
we're just gonna
Yes.
roll with it.
that was probably the grossest thing I could ever imagine. Having been around iguanas and just smelled
Gross. They're
iguana.
so gross.
like
Yeah.
No.
that I'm like, Scooby might have survived that, but I was not well, and I was glad I wasn't eating lunch today when I watched that show.
So that is how when Scooby runs to go presumably find a bathroom where he can vomit, which again dogs do not care. Or a carpet, I suppose. He's off to find the nicest carpet in the house so he can throw up. And
Yeah.
he falls down a hole, which we've already searched the house from basement to attic without finding
Supposedly.
Wednesday. It is according to Fred, who, as we have established, is of questionable intelligence.
Right.
But he's got everybody with him. So Scooby falls down a hole in the floor. Again, anywhere else, and you go, but it is the Addams Family house. And he winds up on top of a circular elevator, which somehow goes higher than where it's all the mechanics of this are very strange, and I don't know. But basically, it takes them up to this attic room, where we find Wednesday playing with the yo-yo. That is actually her pet spider, who kept her company.
She's
Because
just
her
up there like,
chair,
oh, hi.
oh hi, because her chair floated up there, but her chair was still at the table. It was her chair was at the table.
Don't get lost in the details.
I'm not. I know. I know.
I'm
It went
lost.
up and came
I'm
back
gone.
down. That's what it was.
Now I'm gonna
Yeah.
focus on that.
Yeah, we're just gonna. Now we're all very concerned about.
Well, why didn't the
the,
live audience notice?
Why
You know?
didn't anybody mention anything?
They should have
They were
said
too
something
busy
Um,
laughing at all the puns.
at every
Yeah.
one of them, the whole time.
So many.
So we wind up, we find her, and the vulture is circling. The vulture drops an egg, which Scooby and Shaggy think is a bomb. Shaggy says that every time I don't like bombs, they always go to pieces.
That.
It's not great,
Mm.
but here we are. And inside the egg is a note. This is a lot of work. Like when we find out what this that is commitment to a bit.
Yes.
Very elaborate.
And it's basically an egg that drops that says, "This is your last chance. You got to get out." Now, obviously, Shaggy's like, "Great, gone. See ya."
Yeah.
But again, the Addams Family is not gonna care about weird bird dropping egg notes at all. They're gonna be like, "This is great." But the vulture crashes, and we find out that it's actually a helicopter, or as one of the people in the device says, a helicopter.
Yeah.
They were new at the time. Come on. Like,
They were. And it's the two housekeepers that we met at the beginning of the show. And they're trying to scare the Addams Family away. Reportedly because they're afraid that the dinosaurs are going to scare the children.
Yeah.
Now,
For the
hey
children.
guys, what was your favorite dinosaur when you were a kid? Because I know every single one of you had one. Mine was a Triceratops, and they were the
Ooh.
best.
that's cool.
No, Stegosaurus was the best.
Okay, Stegosaurus is pretty good.
I'm so lame. I just like T-Rex. I just thought it was awesome.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's
Every
nothing
kid
wrong
liked the
with T-Rex.
T-Rex.
Nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
It's like Pokemon, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It's someone's favorite.
Mhm.
And that's the beautiful thing about
Mhm.
it.
For the record, I'm with you, Amy. Triceratops. All the way.
Triceratops, excellent. So, and I'm just saying that it's an old white couple that is concerned about the property values in the neighborhood.
The
And isn't
HOA.
that the real villain of the piece? It's not the Addamses and their weirdness.
This was a thinly veiled social commentary.
Really very thinly. The fog is lifted right there. Yeah. So that and so they're like, "Oh, well, is that all? Don't even worry about it." I forgot. We get an aside to the Okefenokee Swamp, in which we are told and shown exactly how they are spending their time in the
Oh, yeah.
Okefenokee Swamp. They're
Mhm.
playing hopscotch in the quicksand.
Yep.
Which again, quicksand, not as big a deal in my life as I would have been led to believe as a child.
Mhm.
They're feeding breadcrumbs to alligators, which
Sure.
I don't know that alligators particularly care for breadcrumbs, to my knowledge, but that's okay.
it's
and-
an alligator. I've never done that, but maybe,
Yeah.
I've seen them do chicken, but
Mhm.
But the best part is Gomez fishing, because he catches something, he hooks something, and it's something big, which pulls him under the water. And there's a lot of thrashing about, and then he basically gets like bit back up onto the shore, and he's like, "Ah, I got away." Which was, and Morticia's like, "Don't worry, you'll get him next time."
Yeah.
Um, which is great. So they what they wind up doing to appease the old couple who's very concerned about the children, is they set the dinosaur skeleton that Scooby and Shaggy very uh efficiently found out in the front lawn, and kids are sliding down it, and then the octopus is there
Mhm.
um giving kids rides, and they're like, "I can't believe that the children enjoy the dinosaur." Yeah, dog, that is
Mhm.
what children like.
Mhm.
Maybe you should stop.
So
Kids
out of
like weird
touch,
stuff.
old people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
And so everything is now better. We do love the Adamses, and we're glad they're here.
Mhm.
And so now we just got to get the mystery machine out of the mud.
Okay,
Thankfully,
one thing real quick.
yeah,
Talking about the world that we're in, I love
sure.
that the old couple, as soon as they were caught, immediately they know the Scooby Gang, and they're like, "Okay, call the
Yeah,
police."
call the cops. All
Yep.
right, call the
I
authorities.
was like, "Okay, they know who
They've watched
the
the show.
they
Yeah.
are." Yeah,
It was so good.
that was funny.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, yeah, no, we were harassing these people. Go ahead.
And
Um,
the Scooby
It was all
Gang's like, "We got
magnets,
a
by the
better
way.
idea."
it was all magnets. Yeah. So the whole reason that they got hired as housekeepers were to place these very high powered magnet squares on things that they could control from the helicopter.
Yeah.
Which is how they made Wednesday's uh chair float and the
Well,
magic carpet that Scooby and Shaggy wind up
And
on.
the night that I thought was
And
gonna
the
be like
night,
a
mhm,
thing, and then it really
yeah,
wasn't. I was ready. I was like, "Who's
right.
in that night?" And then it didn't matter.
it wasn't. I'd like to
No.
think that it is actually haunted, and the ghost that's in there is like, what the hell is going on? Like,
Who
what is happening?
stuck this
The suit of
magnet
armor
on
hasn't
me?
moved. Yeah.
Ah, yeah. So, and so then we've just got to get the mystery machine out of the mud, and Lurch is there to help, and he lifts it up too high. And we're gonna ride off. But the good news is, so we're going, and it's like, oh, it's so dark out here. And Shaggy says, "Don't worry, I've got some of Uncle Fester's candles." Oh no! And then they all died in a fiery wreck. No,
Yeah,
no, it was
fireworks
very
don't work
lovely.
that way.
Mhm,
Fireworks do not work that way at
mm-mm.
all.
No, and not only that, but it was a box that was clearly labeled candles until Velma told Freddy that they were Roman
Roman
candles. Then the word
candles.
Roman suddenly appeared above the word
Yeah,
candles.
You
right.
know,
Mhm.
that's a really good thing to point out, though, because that's kind of how you see the world until, I see what I
Yeah,
want to
yeah, yeah.
see until
Yep.
someone says, "Oh, did you not notice the gorilla in the corner while you were Oh, oh,
Yep.
yeah,
Oh,
okay.
right.
There it is. Oh, I can't believe that. Mm-hmm.
And so the gang rides off in a load of firework glory, off to the next mystery slash gig.
Yeah, they're going to their
Mhm.
gig first.
Um,
They got a
yeah.
gig. It's important to remember the band,
It is. Gotta
Um,
pay for that van.
right?
yeah. And so that was the episode. What did you guys think about going back and watching this, Steven?
I had a really fun time. I wasn't super hyped. I was like, man, it's been a long time since I watched Scooby Doo. I watched like the movies, the most recent
Sure.
Matthew Lillard iteration of the movies, which were great. I thought they were fun all by themselves, but I haven't watched the cartoon in a really long time. And I'd forgotten about laugh tracks. I'd forgotten about how awkwardly everyone runs.
So
Like
bad.
like Morticia, I don't know who animated her, but she was walking when she had some hitch in her giddy up, to throw it back.
Yeah.
Like she was
Yeah.
leaned over like creeping. I'm like, this is not like Angelica Houston back straight kind of thing. I'm
No.
like, what are they
No.
doing? Took me a minute to get my head around the Addams Family because, again, like you said, the Raul Julia era is where I'm mostly comfortable, And then I'm like,
Mhm.
what? Who drew Gomez? Oh, Charles Adams drew Gomez. So
Yes.
this is fine.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No big deal. Some highlights from the episode for me that I thought were great. They said they were going on a 3-day trip. They definitely did stay gone 3 days. No way.
No.
Not even close.
No.
Background stuff. This was cool.
Yep.
Stuff in the
Mhm.
background, little sight gags. The clock with all 13s around all like the key
Mhm.
points on the
Yep.
clock. I noticed that. There were some glasses that had 3 eyes. Like that was fun. There's a
Hmm.
two-headed family member in a frame on a dresser. And I was like, oh, what the devil? That was cool. And they had like clown posters everywhere. So
Mhm.
there's all this. You look at the backgrounds of Scooby-Doo, and a lot of times it can look very generic. Like they're in a warehouse chasing a clown or whatever. This one, they
Mm.
really kind of put some creativity into what they were going to put in those backgrounds. Anywhere where it wasn't going to like loop, just over and
Yeah.
over and over
Yeah.
I
again.
mean, because that's the thing, right? Is it's
Sure.
like a lot of them are loops.
Yeah.
So, our good friend of the show, Phil Rude, did comment on our Twitter post about it that there's an Instagram account, Scooby _scapes, and it's all background art from Scooby Doo episodes, and
Oh
they
my
are
It's
fantastic.
amazing.
So good. Because like you said, like if we're running down the endless hallway that is that door and that vase on a column,
Yep.
who does that? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And then like the window with the curtains drawn
Yeah.
over and over again. Yeah, that stuff gets real generic.
Hmm.
But a lot of these, especially like the outdoor establishing shots,
Yeah.
like the one of the Addams Family house, but like all of the episodes, they are real good.
Yeah, they did a
Mhm.
fantastic. And speaking of things that are kind of generic, the amount of audio going on in the background at any given time in any scene, there's always music. There's always music.
Mhm.
There's always a stinger, and it's always the same one, slightly tweaked, just a little bit, here and there. And I'm
Yep.
like, man, they're really just sitting there with a keyboard programmed Scooby Sound 1, Scooby Stinger, and there's just a guy just going doong doong doong
Mhm.
and he's
Pretty
just
much.
banging stuff, scoring the show. And
Yep.
Hmm.
that just tickled me. I'm like, you know what? I love it. It's a throwback to childhood. I had a Scooby tape when I was a kid, and I watched it over and over and over. And it scared me just a little as like a 4,
Sure.
5, 6-year old. Like, but I
Oh
watched it
yeah.
constantly. Loved it. It was like the Phantom episode or something. I don't remember which. I could tell you if I saw it, but it was about a phantom in a warehouse. Loved that show.
Yep.
How about you, Audie?
Oh yeah, I loved it. I mean, it just, you know, I'm I'm one of those that grew up with Scooby Doo, and it was weird. So this week I was listening to the original Scooby Doo theme song, not realizing that the movies were different. But as soon as the theme song for the movie started playing, immediately my brain was like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I
I
remember
know this.
this."
Yeah.
So that was great. Um, yeah, and it was great that it had all the Scooby Doo stuff and all the Adams Family stuff
Yeah.
just in there, and like Gomez and Morticia, they waited till the end of the episode to remind you how horny Gomez gets when Morticia says anything French.
Yep.
It was
And then
that
she says
was
au
like,
revoir. It's like, oh, and she's like, I'm sorry, dear. I'm sorry,
sorry,
dear.
I'm
Alveda
sorry.
Zane.
I'll be to
And I
say.
was like, okay. But yeah, I mean, like Steven said, Scooby Doo's been around forever. There's so many iterations. If you haven't watched the most recent movie, Scoob, watch it.
It
It's
was
great.
fun.
It's great. It's a great Hanna-Barbera send up because they have a lot of other Hanna-Barbera characters in that. Blue Falcon's a key character, and it's really interesting how they play with him. Um, but yeah, watching this was just like comfort watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Trev?
I mean, I grew up watching Scooby Doo. It was one of my favorite. It still is one of my favorite cartoons of all time. Every iteration of it. A lot of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? New Scooby Doo movies and Pup Named Scooby Doo. I
Yep.
watched just all the
Yeah.
time, and I loved all of it. And I would rewatch them. I had tons of Scooby Doo plushes. I had a giant Scooby Doo pillow at one point. I actually ended up giving that to my nephew because he started showing some love for Scooby Doo, and I'm like, here, this is for you. But
Oh, good Uncle Travis.
I just love Scooby Doo, and I loved especially the new Scooby Doo movies. held a special place for me because I liked Scooby-Doo Where Are You? The classic,
Yep.
and it's so much fun, but it was very Hanna-Barbera formulaic.
Yep.
Like, every episode was the same
I
beats at the
we
same
would have
time.
gotten away with it
Mhm.
too if it weren't
Yeah.
for those meddling
Mhm.
kids.
And the thing that the movies did, because they made them longer, they're about 45 minutes long.
Yeah.
They were a full hour time slot, is they can do a little bit more. It's still the formula, it's still Scooby-Doo, but you throw in the celebrity
Right.
guest star for that week, and there was just more to it. And I loved that. Like, I really enjoyed the interplay. Like, the crossover of Addams Family and Scooby-Doo is perfect.
Yeah.
It really works
Oh, yeah.
well. And while I'm with all of you in that Raul Julia and that era of Addams Family is my Addams Family, I do have a place for John Aston and them, and they fit this
Yes.
version. This version of the Addams Family fit better with Scooby-Doo, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And it's just
Um,
so much fun. And even though I tend to groan and roll my eyes at puns, like, I can watch Scooby-Doo and I can let them happen because it's just like the laugh track. It's comforting.
Yep.
It's comforting to see and hear that, and to see the Hanna-Barbera animation, right? And it's
Yeah.
the same running animation every single time they run, ever.
Yeah.
And it's great.
When I was younger, I used to nanny for a little girl, and they had, I forget, I think it was Boomerang, which is just like all old Hanna-Barbera stuff.
Mhm.
And that kid was obsessed with watching it. And I'm like watching these old shows with her, and I'm like, and you are 4 years old. I do not know that this is what we should be watching, but we're gonna roll with it anyway. Um, some of the other guests that they had on the new Scooby-Doo movies, was Sandy Duncan as herself. I think the as themselves are like the real fun ones, right?
Mhm.
Sandy Duncan, Phyllis Diller, Don Knotts, Sonny and Cher, um, Davy Jones. There's just like a whole bunch. Like this was a good
Tim
one.
Conway
Yep.
I gotta watch
was
the Tim
one.
Conway episode.
Dick Van Dyke was one.
Dick Van Dyke, Cass
Nice.
Elliot,
Don't know that one.
the Mamas and the Papas.
Yeah.
Mama
Yeah.
Cass. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mama Cass.
Yeah.
You know, the Harlem Globetrotters were on like 3 different times.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
important.
They
That like
guest
because
star
that's what
on
I think
everything.
of, right? And so that's what I love about like that's one of those things, right, about how influential this show was. You look at something like the Venture Brothers, which is clearly very much a send up of like it is a lot of
Johnny Quest.
Johnny Quest, but like
Mhm.
there's a lot of this stuff in there too.
Yeah.
And then you have like there's a Harlem Globetrotters episode of Futurama.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like they do stuff like that all the time. Like they do the Laurel and Hardy bits. You know what I mean? Like these it was just so I don't know, it's just so everywhere.
Yeah,
I
and
hadn't watched
Batman.
any. Yeah, Batman
I
and
was
Robin.
gonna say Batman and Robin were on a couple of times, and it was the iteration of Batman and Robin that would become part of the Super Friends,
Yeah.
which is important because the Super Friends went on for a long time, and Casey
Mhm.
Kasem as Robin.
Yep.
So, and then there was an episode of, I think it's Batman the Brave and the Bold, where they had the Scooby Gang on it with
Yeah.
Batman and Robin, and I think Weird Al was also in that episode. And they reference the Scooby-Doo movies episodes that Batman and Robin were in
Oh, that's
in that
cool.
episode of Brave and the
Yeah.
Bold. So like,
Brave and the Bold is an excellent iteration of Batman. Good lord.
I like to think that all the Hanna-Barbera universes are like way more connected. Like they're
oh,
just
definitely.
completely connected,
yeah.
and that's just
Well,
weird.
even in this, you know, they had the cast of Josie and the Pussycats and Speed Buggy were in
Yeah.
episodes of the new Scooby-Doo movies.
Mhm.
And eventually, I think after this iteration of Scooby-Doo, the next new series was when Scooby-Doo left CBS and went to ABC, and they had like the Scooby-Doo Dynamite Hour.
hmm
So it would be half Scooby-Doo and half Blue Falcon with Dynamite.
Mhm.
What I do like about Scooby-Doo though, as a kid, was that because growing up, my dad in his younger years had been a DJ, and so I exclusively listened to like oldies and stuff. And so I knew Casey Kasem as Casey Kasem way before, and then someone be like, "Wait a minute, hang on,
I remember I knew
Shaggy
Casey
sounds
Kasem's voice
familiar."
from the Top 40 Countdown, right?
Yeah,
And
Yep.
the first
yeah.
time
Mhm.
I realized he was Shaggy, there was a Sega Genesis Scooby-Doo game where it was like it was a point and click adventure on the Sega Genesis for Scooby-Doo. And I remember I got to the credits after beating that game, which was really two games in one, two mysteries, so it was really great. But it had Casey Kasem as Shaggy, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's the dude that was like the Top 40 Countdown and did that thing and had that 5 seconds in Ghostbusters. Where he was on the screen. Like, wait a minute, did he really
Yep.
do Shaggy? Because at this point, my whole concept of time is warped, and I don't know how old anyone is. And I'm like, he old
Right.
enough to
Mhm.
have been Shaggy in the old cartoons? Like, oh yeah, he totally was. Like that was a stunner for me when I figured that
And
out.
newer
Yeah.
cartoons. He was one of the Transformers too.
Oh
He was
Mhm.
wow, yeah,
Cliff Jumper. Is that right?
I think it was Cliff Jumper. I don't remember exactly which one, but yeah, he did a fair amount of voice work.
he had a
Yeah, I
very
did.
distinct voice.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It
And every
worked.
character sounded exactly like it.
Yeah, of
and
Yeah.
that's
course.
fine. Like, that's. I mean, it's. I talk about that, right? In that, as someone who does some voice work, um, I'm not a Frank Welker. I'm a I'm a Mark Hamill. I have two voices, and both of them are me, but I do them real good.
There you go.
Um,
Speaking
Yeah.
of
yeah.
of voice work, Frank Welker, man, he did Scooby Doo
Mhm.
in this. He did Scooby Doo in the new movies. He's done Optimus
Well,
Prime since the dawn of time. Um,
so no, he
He's
was not the
Megatron.
voice. Yeah, he's the voice of Megatron, but he's
Megatron.
not the voice of Scooby-Doo in this.
Oh,
In the show Scooby-Doo, he's the voice of Fred Jones,
Yep.
but not the voice of
oh,
Scooby.
but he's Scooby Doo in
Mhm.
the movies. Okay.
Later on, he did
He
that.
has
Yeah,
been.
Don Messick was the voice of Scooby-Doo.
Well, the movies, by the movies, I mean the Sean Gunn written live action movies.
Yeah.
He played Scooby Doo in those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
so I was sitting there wondering, like, what do we do when when Frank Welker dies and we have to recast everything he's ever done because he's
Everything.
touched so much,
I
It's
mean, it
going
was
to
like
take
Mel
50
Blanc.
different people
I
to
mean,
do what he's done himself.
and sound
yeah.
alikes. They
Pretty
sound
much.
alike, but they're not on it. Like Kermit's different than Kermit used to be, and you get
Yeah.
like Kermit before after. Wait, hold on. Kermit after Jim Henson, but before whoever's doing it now. It's good Kermit, not the old Kermit. This new Kermit, way different. You can tell, bothers me every time I hear him. I love the Muppets. Kermit's Kermit, but it takes a
Mhm.
second. Takes a second for me to just twerk the old brain muscles there, and okay,
Yeah.
I'm in. Sound alikes are
Yeah.
hard.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
By the way, Frank Welker has been doing the voice of Freddy since the character began in 1969
Oh
as Fred
dang.
Jones. He's done it
Daggum.
that long. 50 years of doing that character.
I didn't know Fred had a last name. Today I learned.
Listen, I know from Scooby-Doo,
Yeah,
okay?
I could tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you know. Do, 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 do.
Man, we're gonna get there at some point. We will encounter more we knows, and it's
Mhm.
gonna be good. I'm waiting for like an end of the episode, like, hey guys, we had a lot of fun today. I'm very much well. I guess this is actually a pretty good segue because next week we start our new topic.
Yes.
do.
Woo.
And I think we're all very excited about this topic.
Very.
Yeah.
I
Because
think we've been
this
excited
topic,
since we started this podcast.
I'm
yeah,
pretty pumped about it.
topic is drugs, which I believe was originally written with was it an exclamation point or just in quotes,
I wrote
or
it in
it was
all
it was
caps.
great.
I pitched it in
All
all
caps.
caps and an exclamation point.
Drugs.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be doing those very special episodes that deal with drugs.
Mhm.
I think I put mine in our document in approximately a millisecond after we decided that's what was happening.
Yep. You
'Cause
set it up and like boom, boom, boom.
we did have a tiebreaker
Mhm.
in this last one, which was exciting. Um
hmm
so surprisingly, at least as of this moment, we are not doing the one that everyone thinks of, which is the Saved by the Bell. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so scared. Um, classic.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Mhm.
No, so first up, talking about very special episodes of drugs, is going to be our good friend Travis. Travis, what are we watching?
So I have decided, actually, within the last 5 minutes, I finally made my decision on what
I
we're gonna
I
do.
had
Yeah, I
noticed
was a little
that the
scared.
document was empty,
A little
and I
scared.
was not. I was like, do I tell? No, I'm just gonna put him on the spot, and that's fine. He'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
So I had a few ideas, and I finally settled on, there's an episode of Different Strokes, and it's season 4, episode 2, and it's called First Day Blues. And it has to deal with, uh, Willis is struggling to make friends on his first day of high school, and agrees to buy some weed in order to garner favor with these friends.
Mm, the time-honored tradition of trying to be one with the cool kids with the
Mhm.
Yes.
drugs.
There were Different Strokes alone had a couple of episodes I could have actually chosen from.
Yeah.
And I had been leaning towards an episode of Family Ties where Alex gets hooked on diet pills,
Ooh.
but I couldn't find it streaming anywhere.
Nah,
And
Yeah.
that is
it's,
that's the
I'll have
That's
to.
thing.
that's been half the problem of
Mhm.
That is
picking the episode.
But actually, ironically, so the episode you chose, Amy, of Scooby-Doo movies is the
Yeah.
one episode of the new Scooby-Doo movies that is not available on home video
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah,
Because
I did
of
like archive.org has it like old and rare. And I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
Mhm.
and it's because of a dispute with the Charles Addams estate. So because of the Addams Family, it's
Ah,
the only one that was never released on a DVD or Blu-ray.
Oh wow.
But yeah,
outstanding.
so Different Strokes, season 4, episode 2, which is available on Amazon Prime in the US.
Sweet.
Very exciting.
And it's called
Nice.
First Day Blues.
I'm
So
excited. I'm looking at our list. I'm not gonna give them away. But I do like that we have not. No one has picked any like of the easy picks,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and I'm into that.
Mhm.
That's very exciting.
Well, they don't come here for like just to hear about shows they've all seen 80,000 times. They come here to see the thing that they didn't think about. The one that they're kind of like, "Whoa, I didn't even know that was a thing." That's what I'm pumped about this show. We've all got enough of an
Mhm.
encyclopedic classic TV knowledge that we're like, "Oh, wait, but have you thought of this one?" And I'm pumped. I'm also pumped about the general vibes of each of these episodes.
Yeah.
And how they're gonna roll, because it's you could go real drug somber, and it
Yeah.
could, so it's kind
Mhm.
of cool to see how this is gonna play out. Ah,
Yeah.
this next month is gonna be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. it
All
is.
right. So I know I talked about Phil's feedback that we had. Do we have any other feedback? Did anybody check? Are we good at this?
Have anything in the mail?
It's a holiday, so what do we know?
Yeah, I don't know. I can. You want me to vamp for a second? I can figure out what we got here. Let me check. Going through the old mailbag.
One of the interesting things about trying to pick our next one that I found a lot, I was like, okay, what's this very special episode? Wait, it's about something that's not drug related.
Mm-hmm.
Dang it, that doesn't fit, So
This
like
was one
Phil
of the
mentioned the Tom Hanks Family Ties episode. I was like, yeah, that's not really a drugs episode. That's a whole different
there was
bag of
because
stuff.
very that was one of the things like I think my episode that I picked was the one that like when we put drugs on the list as possible topics, I was like, I already know what I'm doing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I
So
knew
I've
what I
had to
was
like
gonna do
not
too.
pick that show for everything.
Yeah. I was juggling a few of them. I almost picked the one Travis is doing. So I thought about that one, but
I mean, for what it's worth, I almost picked the one you chose.
Yeah.
Aw, you guys are so
I was close to the
cute.
one Audie pick. But I was like,
Mhm.
nope. I knew this when I was going in that I was going to do this one, and
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, we got no mail in the mailbox. So send us mail, man.
Alright.
Those were the days
Send us
show.
mail, please.
Those were the days show at gmail.com. Please,
Someone besides someone related to me, please send us mail.
put the
We want
mail
to hear
in the
from you.
mailbox. We want the real people out there, not just Audie's
Yeah.
pretend family. Jeez. All I've ever seen is his laundry room. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what
Yeah.
lives there.
All
You see how
right.
much laundry is back there. There's a number of people.
Yikes. Well, he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those pesky kids.
You got it.
Yeah.
All right. So, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Thank you, boys, for talking with me about the good old Scooby Doo. And until next week, enjoy your old TV.